What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchet REACT, and we're back with another video. What we got today, C?
Today we're back with another American reaction. Super excited about this video. If you're new to us
And we new to you,
make sure you scroll down,
hit that subscribe button,
and turn on the post notification bell.
because we're on the road to 200K.
And we cannot get there without you guys, alright? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Let's get it.
Go ahead and get started. If you know more than a little about the American Revolution, you know that France played an important role in America's victory for independence by providing money, men, and material. But there is another lesser-known contributor to the United States victory, the Netherlands. Its official name at the time was the Republic of the Seven United Netherlands, also commonly known as the Dutch Republic. This is the predecessor state of modern-day Netherlands, though at the time this also included parts of modern-day Belgium. Now, the Netherlands wasn't officially an ally of the United States, nor did they support the United States with soldiers, both of which probably contributes to why they are often forgotten. Great Britain actually saw the Netherlands as an ally of theirs at the beginning of the Revolution, but the Netherlands officially declared themselves neutral in the war. What the Netherlands was more interested in than a US victory was making money, and they weren't too concerned with who they were making the money from, but by the end of the war, the United States and the Dutch Republic would have a common enemy. This is how the Dutch would support the war effort: trade. Before I go further, let me first provide some context. At the time of the American Revolution, though slowly declining in power by the 18th century, the Netherlands was a global leader in trade, controlling territories across the globe and a worldwide network of seafaring trade routes. Historians and economists debate on what exactly drove this small nation of only about 16,000 square miles or 42,000 square kilometers to become such a power. But historically, the Netherlands have accepted a high number of immigrants, which often brought with them skills and capital that could be reinvested.
Okay.
The country's inhabitants have also historically had a hard work ethic that emphasizes efficiency, which many historians say is rooted in its Calvinist past. But its rise to becoming a great seafaring nation is also rooted in the Netherlands' physical geography. This is a coastal country, lies extremely low in elevation, and is essentially one giant river delta, which has made it prone to flooding. I actually made a whole video on how the Dutch have adapted to its geography. If you want to check that out, I've left a link in the comments below. Water and the terrain shaped by it is why the country rides bikes, grows tulips, and has hundreds of windmills. But water didn't just shape culture within its mainland borders. The physical geography, combined with the aforementioned cultural characteristics of the Netherlands, turned the Dutch into expert and efficient shipbuilders, and motivated its population to seek trade opportunities across the globe. And one of those places was the 13 colonies. Tensions began rising in the American colonies following the French and Indian War in 1763. The British launched a series of acts that raised taxes on the colonists in order to pay for the war, because the British felt that the colonists caused the war, so they should provide payment for the protection that Great Britain had provided. The colonists weren't happy about it. Protests erupted, and in 1770, British soldiers opened fire on a mob of angry colonists, killing at least 5 men and wounding several more, in what is known as the Boston Massacre. Then in December of 1773, a band of Bostonians, dressed as Mohawk Indians, in protest on the taxation, boarded British ships and dumped 342 chests of tea into Boston Harbor. The event is known as the Boston Tea Party. The British Parliament responded with what the colonists referred to as the Intolerable Acts. This brought Massachusetts under full control of the British government, and allowed British loyalists in the colony to be tried in Great Britain. George Washington called this the Murder Act, because he said it allowed British officials to harass colonists and then flee to Great Britain to escape justice. The act also allowed British soldiers to be housed wherever necessary, including private homes, though some historians say the act only meant unoccupied buildings. Great Britain had attempted to isolate extremists in Massachusetts with these acts, but it backfired, and other colonies pledged to support Massachusetts if there was an attack by the British. The colonists prepared for war. The British, for obvious reasons, refused to sell arms and ammunition to the American colonists, and they banned other countries from doing so as well. In 1774, Britain declared the export of war materials to the colonies to be illegal, and therefore subject to search and seizure. And this is where the Dutch entered the picture, because the Dutch didn't care. Dutch merchants continued to trade wherever and whenever possible. The British Lieutenant Governor of New York warned London in November of 1774 that contraband between this place and Holland prevails to an enormous degree. Actions must be taken against the smugglers, but it would not be easy, The vessels from Holland or St. Eustatia do not come into this port, but in the numerous bays and creeks that our coasts and rivers furnish, on which the contraband is sent up through small boats. The British were furious that the Dutch continued to ignore the ban. They then made a strong request to the Netherlands to stop all war materials from being shipped to the American colonies. Penalties included confiscation of materials, large fines, and the confiscation of ships if not paid.
Yeah, they was able to stop everybody else from sending out equipment but the Netherlands. Different. And on top of that, the Netherlands said, we're about our money, so forget what y'all saying. We're going to make sure we get this paper by any means necessary.
Yeah, I wonder how the Dutch felt about that. You know, about the colonies wanting to break off from the people who sent them there to colonize the land.
Yeah.
Like, how did the Dutch feel about that? Like,
And
what if that happened to them?
I know, right? And what a act, though, to, like, do all these massacres and then be able to flee. A whole country, right? Just to go be safe and have justice there.
Right. Well, nothing was just.
Oh, nothing justice about it, but for them,
justified.
in their eyes, they say, hey,
Yeah.
we obtain a winning, whatever.
Yeah,
but,
in their perspectives. But I always wondered what, like, the British or now the Dutch, like, what did they teach about the American Revolution? You know, the other perspective. I always wondered that.
Yeah, there's always two sides to a coin.
Con-
Oh, what happened? That's good.
Conscious of not being able to go head-to-head with the British Navy, the British had 100 warships compared to the Netherlands' 11. The government of the Netherlands officially decided to comply. But the Dutch merchant class wasn't happy with their government's decision, and they just continued to ignore the British request. So the British then responded with more search and seizures around St. Eustatius, the hub for this arms and ammunition trade. Once the war had officially begun with the battles of Lexington and Concord in April of 1775, the Dutch ammunition trade to the Americans got so bad that King George III in January 1776 ordered more warships on duty around the Caribbean. He stated, "Every intelligence confirms that principally St. Eustatius, but also all the other islands, are to furnish the Americans with gunpowder this winter." But many of the Dutch traders continued to find ways to evade the British. More obstacles arose with the defeat of the Americans at Long Island, which left America completely without the ports of New York and later Philadelphia. Though the two largest ports were occupied by the British, the Dutch were again not a group to give up on this lucrative trade, and they continued smuggling through smaller ports and estuaries. In 1776, the Dutch Republic made a half-hearted effort to comply with the continued requests from the British. They replaced St. Eustatius governor with a new man, named Johannes de Graaf, after the British complained that his predecessor was allowing merchants to continue to ship war materials to the Americans. But on the 16th of November, 1776, the American Navy ship USS Andrew Doria, with the American Declaration of Independence on board, arrived in St. Eustatius. Its captain fired a salute to the Dutch flag on Fort Orange, and the governor, Johannes de Graaf, decided to answer the salute with 11 gunshots. And so the United States of America were for the first time recognized as a nation by another. So now, not only were the Dutch preventing the Americans from running out of ammunition, allowing the revolution to continue, they had now recognized the British colony as a sovereign nation. On top of this, the Netherlands was actually supposed to have provided 6,000 troops to the British for the war, as was the terms of a past treaty. In 1778, when France was persuaded to join in the fight against the British, the Dutch traded with them as well.
Yeah.
But with the French, they traded mostly naval stores. The French needed supplies for their naval construction, but were unable to obtain them themselves due to the blockade of the Royal Navy. So they turned to the Dutch, who were privileged by a concession obtained after their victory in the Second Anglo-Dutch War, known as the principle of free ship, free goods, which was enshrined in the Anglo-Dutch Commercial Treaty of 1668. According to the treaty, naval stores were not considered contraband, as long as the Dutch remained neutral, which the Dutch claimed they were. But of course, the British just declared naval stores illegal and started arresting Dutch ships. And as always, Dutch merchants continued to evade the British. The Dutch-British relationship became more hostile on the 31st of December 1779 when the two countries had a brief naval engagement. The British wished to inspect Dutch ships for what they considered contraband destined for France. The Dutch initially refused and threatened the British with force, before finally backing down. The event caused the Dutch to pursue joining the League of Armed Neutrality, which was an alliance of European naval powers which was intended to protect neutral shipping against the Royal Navy's wartime policy of unlimited searches. The British government saw this move as a threat, and it could potentially embroil Great Britain in a war with its other members, Russia, Sweden, and Denmark, Norway. They had finally had enough. Great Britain officially declared war on the Dutch Republic, and they began attacking their former allies' colonial economic interests, including St. Eustatius, in what was known as the Fourth Anglo-Dutch War. One head-to-head naval battle did take place, the Battle of Dogger Bank. Both sides took hundreds of casualties. Tactically, the battle was a draw, but it was a strategic victory for the British. The Dutch did not have the naval strength to continue going head-to-head with the British. This allowed the British to continue their oppression against the Dutch merchants. Though the Dutch colonial empire had already been slowly declining, this settled it, and cemented Great Britain as the new leading commercial power. Though the Netherlands' economic self-interests were a large motivator for the support of the American Revolution, Dutch citizens, probably more so than the Dutch government, became more sympathetic to the American cause as the war progressed. Both countries were being bullied by the same global power, and some sympathy may have come from the Netherlands having fought for their own independence in the 16th and 17th centuries. Whatever the motivation was, the United States will always be grateful for their support. Historian Barbara Tuchman claims that it's possible that the American Revolution would not have survived without the Dutch ignoring the ban on war materials and successfully evading the British. On February 27, 1939, President Franklin D. Roosevelt presented a plaque to St. Eustatius. Mounted on the flagpole inside Fort Orange, it reads, "In commemoration of the salute to the flag of the United States, fired in this fort on 16 November 1776, by order of Johannes de Graaf, Governor of St. Eustatius, in reply to a national gun salute fired by the U.S. brig of war Andrew Doria. Here the sovereignty of the United States was first formally acknowledged to a national vessel by a foreign official." If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more geography.
100%, man. Hey, make sure you guys go check his channel out, man. And all in all, this is more so about the trading grounds and the ports, whatever they can, start to unload and give, merch to each country. But the Netherlands, it was definitely about their paper.
Yep, they didn't care.
100% about their paper.
They
Yeah.
didn't care. But that's interesting because, first of all, I know we learned about the American Revolution in 4th grade and in 9th grade, and now, that we're adults and our children are learning about it, we're refreshing our memory on everything that happened, but from a different perspective. We want the truth as the truth happened. We want no cookie cutter, nothing.
None of that. No.
Nothing at all. So that's interesting to know of this because I don't remember learning this part, like the Dutch.
Yeah. And again, like you mentioned, and I mentioned myself, it is two sides to the coins of this. You know what I'm saying? How they're teaching history on this side is similar to how you guys are getting viewed from it on this platform. But again, on that side of the world, how is it truly being taught to the students?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? How's that real information being displayed? Because I know there's names, monuments, more boats that has names on it, captains and trading goods and all that they talk about. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting.
Like I would love to know, and in Dutch studies, in the Netherlands studies, like what do they teach about the American War, Revolutionary War? Because obviously it impacted not just the United States and Britain, but it impacted the Dutch obviously as well with the selling of the arms. But I would love to know that perspective, especially with the British, because they lost the 13 colonies. What happened on the boats. Of course, we know the African Americans who fought on the British side. They promised them some things. We know
it's always that
some things, but like, what did they teach on that side?
Right. I wonder how they're really making the children, view the different countries.
The perspectives.
From the perspective of history, because you can always paint the picture. I mean, not paint the picture, but give the storyline based off how the facts were written in history. But in what way are you truly teaching it to where they can look up on their map and be like, or look on the internet or whatever it is on social media and have a respect for another location without being triggered behind history and wars and things that happen like that. You know what I'm saying? Because there's always a bridge that can be mended.
Right.
Instead of burning it, you know what I mean? So.
Right. Because
I'm sorry, not to cut you off, and like just in history with us, like when we was doing our research and they was teaching us, it wasn't necessarily teaching us to hate someone else.
No, but unconsciously you were thinking of something in another person's perspective. Well, not another person, a panel of people's perspectives based on how they wrote the
it
material.
Out. Yeah, true.
So Yeah. Like, for instance, you know, us being called slaves.
Mm-hmm.
So we grew up calling our lineage slaves and not enslaved Africans.
Right.
You know, just that switch. So,
Right. But we're
yeah,
not walking around
perspectives.
hating white people.
Yeah, we
Or hating anybody that was in position to enslave people in
Right,
general
right.
because of the history that was taught. But it was
We have
important to
knowledge.
it's important to have the knowledge of the history.
Yeah, and
You
now
know what I'm saying?
and now we're living in that experience of the aftermath.
Right. So it is that
Yeah.
perspective of the two.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
trying to understand like the mindset of how you guys are teaching it and how people are receiving it and in what way is it
Yeah.
impacting them, you know?
Yeah, so to the Dutch
To the
and
Dutch.
to the British
Mhm.
out there who went through those school systems, what were you taught? Like, how did your knowledge of this war or anything in your history that had to deal with the Americans, how did y'all feel about Americans from that perspective? Not from what's going on today,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
just in what you learned.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So we hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Be sure to subscribe. We'll see you soon.
Peace.